What's up, family? Today, I want to talk about 7 areas that superstition impacts that I think often get overlooked. As a matter of fact, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing a new series of videos called Permission to Think. And in that series, I'm actually going to be walking you through some of the critical ways that atheism and reason has impacted my life and offset some of the harm that kind of living my life in superstition did. All right, so before we jump in this video, quick reminder: make sure you like the video. And then of course, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit that notification bell so that way you can get all of the updates, alerts, and all of that good stuff. And then, of course, if you haven't considered doing it yet, hey, consider joining our YouTube membership community or our Patreon community. Both are ways to get connected, are both excellent ways to get connected. And we have Discord coming soon. I'm still learning how to. I'm an old guy. All right. So let's kind of jump into this. So I want to talk about 7 areas, and it's actually 7 areas of our health that I believe superstition impacts. And so these are me just sharing my thoughts. And so we'll start with the first one. The first one is social health. Okay. Superstitions can significantly affect social health by shaping interactions and relationships with various social units. For example, beliefs in curses or omens can lead to purposeless marriages where unions are formed based on fear rather than love or compatibility. I've definitely seen this a lot, where entire relationships are built based off of what we believe about our superstitions and not actually what we know about each other, not about the compatibility of the type of decisions that we make, or even what we want out of life. Or here's another one: what we're planning on doing with our own lives. I've often seen, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, that where superstitions are attached, whether this person is a person who's highly religious or not, romantic relationships seems to get reduced to the just shallowness of sex. That's, it's as a Christian, the whole idea of getting married was to be able to have sex, as opposed of understanding the benefit of having a partner in life that you can, okay, the obvious one is share bills with, but then also make plans with to build a life together. You, when you do not have reason attached to the reason you're getting into relationships, it does create relationships that tend to be more ornamental than functional. So you have dysfunctional families that tend to arise from adherence to harmful superstitions that dictate family roles and behaviors, leading to conflict and estrangement. Fragmented communities result from superstitions that create divisions among groups, fostering mistrust and isolation instead of cooperation and cohesion. For example, obviously I'm a black man, so I do speak from that context every now and then, and I hope you appreciate that. But a part of my journey from religion, a part of my journey from organized religion was definitely checking out, or what I thought organized religion, checking out other things that were happening in the black community. And what I found for me is that the same division I saw in the church, I saw in the conscious community, I saw in the Nation of Islam, everywhere there was these divisions, and the majority of these divisions are based off of some superstitious understanding, not a biological understanding of the world or an evolutionary understanding of the world, or not even a sociological understanding of the world. Simply, I believe man is supposed to be ahead of woman, or I believe that being gay or anything like that is wrong, or I believe. And so you create all of these reasons that, and all of these ideas that have absolutely nothing to do with the purpose of relationships. And so even when you have a community that's been in as much trouble as mine has been, especially around the lack of organization, we can't seem to organize ourselves because we want to be able to dictate what other people's morality should look like, or dictate what other people's belief systems should be like. And see, ultimately, that's the real problem with superstitious belief at the end of the day, that it's never personal. We like to say it's personal. No, It's never personal. If it was personal, we wouldn't have laws that legislated for other people. The true danger in these type of beliefs is that we are always going to superimpose our superstitions on other people. But so my first point was this is definitely dangerous to social health, or at least harmful to social health. Even right now, people have to determine, people in my family, people who I've supported, people who I've taken care of, people who I've done amazing things for, those people have to determine whether they love me or not based off whether they think I love Jesus. And for many of them, if I don't love Jesus, they don't feel like they can love me. This is unhealthy for social health. But also, and I'll hit this nugget one more time before moving to the next one. Also, the idea that someone else has done something wrong simply by living a life that doesn't agree with your superstition. This is this is harmful to social health. Okay, so that's I think that may be my first time hitting social health in all of these videos, but you will definitely hear me talking more about that because if you've watched any of my videos by now, you know that the number one thing that I'm the most passionate about doing, other than just talking in these videos, which, I do love communicating. I am a communicator, but it's really building community. I'm having these conversations because I want to create safe space for dialogue, but not just dialogue, exploration. We need places where not only where we can deconvert and deconstruct and unpack and debrief and grieve, but we also need places where we can grow, expand, and explore and discover new possibilities, which for many of us, that's what we thought we were doing in the church. All right, so the second one is cognitive health, and I speak to this one a lot. Superstitions affect cognitive health by influencing how individuals perceive and interact with their environment, with the world around them. This can lead to a distorted understanding of cause and effect, where events are attributed to supernatural forces rather than logical explanations, even when those logical explanations are readily apparent. For example, one of the things that I saw very often in the Black church was people giving away credit, right? And this one, it amazed me in the latter years. But imagine, someone desperately needs their rent paid, and they couldn't get their rent paid, and then somebody out of the kindness of their heart, or maybe not, or maybe even out of the naivety of their superstition. Either way, some person goes and pays that rent, and then the other person says, the person whose rent got paid, is that was nobody but God. All right. See, in that case, the logical explanation is readily apparent. The person told you what they did. You saw the person do it. You went to the rent place with the person while they paid your rent, but you completely overlook the fact that that person paid your rent. And oftentimes that person will do the same thing. And you give that credit to an imaginary friend, and you literally concretize that memory in that manner, often forgetting that a person was ever involved in the first place. In your mind, it becomes nobody but God did that. Only God could do that, which I do have another video coming out about that. Just the recession of possibility is a very interesting thing, or impossibility rather. But only God can do. And it's something that you clearly saw somebody else do. Now, if you do not cognitively engage into what that person does, you will allow yourself to continue to live by false narratives. And that false narrative may be that nobody looks out for me but God. Nobody has my back but God. Nobody takes care of me but God. Nobody loves me but God. But in order for you to come to that belief, you had to literally deny all of the things that people actually did. Um, and, not only does that impact social health, but that also impacts our cognitive health as well, or at least our cognitive understanding of the world. And such thinking obviously hinders critical thinking skills and promotes a worldview that lacks empirical grounding, potentially leading to decision making based on fear and misinformation, which as I've highlighted before, again, in the context of my community, quite a few people are the victims of scams. And I mean some of the most weird scams. Almost all of your friends who are like, yeah, my Facebook got hacked again. If their Facebook has been hacked like more than 3 times, it's because they keep clicking on scams or porn. That does it too. um, but yeah, so definitely superstition can impact the way we engage with decision making, which is, the true intelligent, the true sign of any intelligence is a changed life. Is the outcomes that you're able to create in your life, and we have like a large amount of people who are not cognitively aware that their decisions actually impact their life. Instead, they believe that their life, their circumstances are the result of spiritual warfare, that their circumstances are the result of angels and demons fighting on their behalf, or their circumstances are the results of someone speaking negatively about them or speaking curses against them or using witchcraft against them. And in any of these cases, this is robbing them of the opportunity to actually engage their life and separate themselves, and many times from what might be excuses not to try harder or not to do better or not to aim for more. And I know it's unpopular, controversial even to say things like that. But I'd encourage anybody to come walk a mile in my shoes, and maybe you'll understand why I definitely say things like that. So obviously, if social health and cognitive health are impacted, then that's also gonna impact economic health, because we must understand that our hmm, economically, our ability to engage economically is heavily weighted on our ability to engage with others socially, and our ability to understand cause and effect, our ability to understand empirical evidence, in order to know how to make the decision. It's not just evidence for evidence sake. I think that's probably one of the saddest things that some believers really think, is that evidence is somehow anti-truth, or that evidence is somehow misleading, when evidence is a reason to act, you know? And so many times, speaking from my context, I've seen so many people act without reason because they don't actually understand how evidence works, right? Like in my early days of kind of departing the faith, I began to redefine what gossip meant to me. And this wasn't, about sin or anything like that. This was about productivity. And so for me, gossip became me engaging any information that I had no ability to interact with. So I can't do anything with this information. I can't use this information to help anybody. I can't use this information to help myself. I can't use this information to correct anything that I'm doing. So at this moment, this information is absolutely useless to anything that I have going on in my life. Why am I actually engaging this information? Now, I'm not saying that anybody else has to be that way. That's just one of my weird things. I am hyper productive, and that's because I realized I spent so much of my life wasting my time. And a part of that, I wasn't economically engaged. Therefore, I was not economically healthy. And looking at that, most of the times I thought it was because of the devil, or because of God, or because of God's people sometimes. That's just the truth. But economic health is impacted by superstitions through the way people engage in work, consumption, and even investment. One thing that I immediately realized, and again, I'm not suggesting everybody should take on this viewpoint. I think another place of liberty I have as an atheist is I don't feel the need to agree with anybody else. I don't feel the need to agree with the consensus, and I don't feel the need to pressure anybody to agree with me. But one of the things that I definitely noticed is that not only did, for me, is that not only did the people that I was surrounded by, including myself, not only did we have unhealthy attachments to this God figure and the Bible and other characters in the Bible, um, which I thought was odd as a black person that we were so invested in these Middle Eastern cultures when we have just like a bouquet of history all around us that we were not engaging. Um, but I did notice that we also had very superstitious beliefs and ideals about work. And I found that to be quite alarming, but also very revealing. Um, and I may dedicate an entire video to that, to even discussing what I noticed in superstitious circles, what hard work began to be defined as, and that the whole idea of work, it was separated. And again, not saying you have to take this worldview, but my idea of work is contribution and productivity, right? Realize that in the type of society that we live in, and that's just me adjusting to the world that I live in, is that okay? The most valuable work that is done is work that contributes to a perceived problem, you know, or contributes to the solution to a perceived problem. Now that now what a problem is it is subjective. You know, some people think not being able to have McDonald's is a problem. So hey, someone's solving that problem. And when I mean who's solving that problem, DoorDash, Uber Eats, you know. Um, but I realized in a lot of the communities that I was associated with, where poverty was rampant, that the majority of our ideas about work wasn't stuff that we can do to contribute. It was just, here's something that I want to do that's really easy, and other people should pay me for it. And so even the idea of work became, find the thing that is easiest for you to do and see if you can convince people to pay you for it, which does create an insane amount of entitlement where I have friends, I have homies right now who are struggling financially past the brink of poverty, but can't move past their own superstitious viewpoints to make decisions that'll move their lives forward, even when the opportunities are right in front of them. So yes, this impacts economic health. Um, Superstitious beliefs can lead to missed opportunities for progress and innovations, as decisions are made based on auspicious dates or omens rather than market analysts or business acumen. Because actually, many superstitious people believe that you don't need market analysts, you don't need our analysis, you don't need business acumen. Professionalism, what's that? You know, and I get it because this country has had a hard time with over labeling things, oversimplifying things, and categorizing things in ways that don't make sense. And so now you have people, if you've been using shortcuts as your way to learn in life, then you may identify things such as marketing or sales or business with things that are very, very negative. For example, many people say that churches operate just like businesses, right? Which, in what they're saying is somehow, for some reason, that business is bad. We should pay attention to that because that's what you're saying there. You're saying that, oh, churches operate like businesses. And I'm like, oh, okay, so businesses are evil. Well, see, that's a superstitious belief in itself. And so you can see how that belief, even sometimes people who are atheists hold those same type of beliefs. Atheists say churches shouldn't operate like businesses. And I'm just like, huh, to me, that's a very weird thing. It seems to be not to have what number one, I think that a part of that resides in this idea of not knowing the difference between nonprofit and for profit. So sometimes people think that nonprofit means that you cannot make a profit and that you cannot operate like a business. But no, there are the goal what you're talking about is profit, but every organization still needs revenue, still needs income. And so in order to do that, you either have to engage in business or you have to subsist off of donations. And so I actually found it more responsible for churches to engage in business, for churches to have um, services that they offered, such as bookstores, coffee stores. That's a great way to supplement your income without having to deprive people. You're actually offering the service. But, you know, again, I can go into those rants. But The problem is we separate ourselves from the necessity of understanding marketing, business, or any of those things, whatever it is that you're in, because everybody's goals are not the same. But for me, and this is why this is important to me, I am a part of a community that does not have an economic foundation, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be still marching and fighting for things that we were fighting for 60 years ago. And much of our problems, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, but much of our problems do come from our involvement and engagement with superstition and our lack of engagement with the critical world around us. And I've kind of hit some of that with social health, that, if we can't unite with other people because they're gay, or we can't unite with other people because they let women preach, or we can't unite with other people because those women work, then if you have all of these, if you have all of these type of reasons that you can't work with other people, then you actually don't have any reason at all. What you have are excuses. Yep. Okay. But anyway, this obviously undermines community development, and individual agency, limiting economic growth and any hopes at sustainable prosperity. So yes, superstition impacts that in a way that I think is fundamentally important. But then there's also, because we're going to move right along, physiological health. Now, my plans are to do a video today, sharing a little bit about my health journey here, because physiological health can be compromised by superstitious beliefs, especially those that dictate medical treatments or health practices based on tradition rather than scientific evidence. Right now, one of the almost everybody I know in my community who claims to be knowledgeable about health are getting their information from people like Dr. Sebi. And this is terrifying. This this is alarming to me. But but in order to come to the conclusion that things like what Dr. Sebi is doing is actual factual healthcare information, you'd have to have reviewed the evidence. There's a few things I know for certain is that the evidence isn't there, right? And so what you see then is that the people who are involving in this, the one thing you know for sure is that they're involving themselves in this without evidence. Why would they be doing this? Why would they? And this is why I make that distinction, that just getting people out of religion doesn't solve the problem. The only way you can say that's the problem is if you believe that religion has some type of agency of its own, that in it as a construct is infecting people, and it's really the other way around, that we are superstitious and we must wrestle with our superstitious inclinations in order to kind of really separate ourselves from that, and then maybe we could possibly redeem religion or redeem politics, which we need to. Right now our politics are in trouble primarily because of our persistent attachment to superstition. And ultimately, superstition, the reason it's so comfortable for us, because it is a shortcut. It is an excuse for mental lethargy. It is permission not to think. It is a reason not to have to know more, which is shocking that Christians would engage themselves in this, because their Bible says, in all of your getting, you should get understanding, which I find to be excellent advice, that in all of our getting, we should get understanding, especially when it comes to our social health, our cognitive health, our economic health, and even our physiological health. You want to get grounded in why you do the things that you do, and thank me later. Um, but of course, this can lead to the neglect of effective medical care, reliance on unproven remedies, which I've seen my whole life, and in extreme cases, the pursuit of harmful practices. Again, stuff I've seen my whole life. Such attitudes towards healthcare can prevent individuals from from receiving the treatment they need, adversely affecting their physical well being. I lived the majority of my life convinced that doctors and the pharmaceutical industry are out to get me. And they actually literally in certain charismatic circles, um, the word pharmaceutical is connected to witchcraft. You believe that these people are doing something that they're not supposed to be doing, because God is the one who heals, and God is perfect, and so He made us perfect. And if we live the way He wants us to live, then we don't have to worry about understanding biology and understanding nutrition or any of those things, because all we have to do is follow the word. And and I want you to think about that, because you may think that that sounds like an exaggeration, but think about how many people you can find on YouTube right now who are saying things such as the only information you need is right here in the Bible. All you need to live your life is right here in the Bible. You know, there are people who go as far as to say if you just follow the diet that's in the Bible, you will be healthy. Yikes. You know, like right now in my community, when we do try to have serious conversations about, what we need to do to do better, to build better, to have a more resounding impact on our education, to have a more resounding impact on our economics, to even have a more positive impact influence in our entertainment. Somehow we always get into this conversation about, well, if we wouldn't be eating pork, we wouldn't be in this situation. And it's just like, wow, literally. But that's something my wife and I discuss frequently, about the pettiness of churches. And that's probably one of those insidious things about such beliefs, is that they do enable you to become incredibly petty. And so you will be arguing about things that have absolutely nothing to do with the things that actually matter. Yeah, yeah, that happens. Um, so yeah, I grew up terrified of doctors, of hospitals, thinking that any moment I'd go into one, that I might not come back out, or that if a doctor treats me for anything, that I'm gonna immediately start getting sick after that, because this was these were common conversations, and of course in our churches, you were constantly hearing that the doctors were wrong. And in our churches, you were constantly hearing that the doctor said that I had this, but then when I went back, the doctor said I didn't, so they don't know. And I'm like, well, your testimony is that they do, in fact, know. Like, that's the only way your testimony works, if the doctor knows that it is not there. If you don't trust the doctor to know that it is there, how do you trust them to know that it isn't there? But this is another thing that I'm highlighting, that when you're engaging in superstition, the stuff you're saying doesn't have to make sense, but you can convince yourself that it makes sense because you don't even know what sense is yet. Yeah, but yeah, so I was afraid, and I often challenge people to take a look at the data. I know, when speaking for my community, we do talk about how my community is um, very negatively impacted when it comes to health. We have a lot of issues here, and a lot of data has a lot of research has been done on trying to figure out, well, what may be the cause of this. I'd encourage someone, a fellow sociologist preferably, to to do the research on the impact of the prevalence of superstition and healthcare, and how you feel about healthcare, how you approach healthcare. I didn't start seeing a doctor regularly until last year, like literally. That's frightening, right? But I'm sure if something would have happened to me, if I would have gotten sick, especially if I was still superstitious, I would have found a way to say, "Well, I was doing well until the doctor started treating me," because these were the narratives that I'd heard. But yeah, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this one, because I am going to do a video today. I'm holding myself to it, where I'm going to share a little bit about my health journey. Another key concern for me, an area that superstition definitely impacts, is emotional health, right? And I think, man, just go through anybody's deconversion story, find any deconversion story on the internet, and you're going to see it. Superstition impacts emotional health by influencing how feelings are prioritized and managed, and not even just how feelings are prioritized and managed, but also how feelings are defined, right? Because I know for me, all of my feelings were defined for me. Some other people would, all is obviously a hyperbole, but people would define my feelings for me. So let's just say if somebody had done something to me and I didn't necessarily want to be friends with them from that point on, or engage with them in any type of relationship. Someone would say, "Oh, well, you just haven't forgiven them," and I'm like, "Well, no, that's actually not the feeling that I have," or "You're just angry," and it's like, "Oh, no, no, I'm not angry now." And I used to get that one a lot. "You're angry," and it's like, "No, I'm hurt." No, no, that's anger. That's anger. And so superstition can create a lot of confusions about what your feelings are. So maybe you're in church and you ask a question because you didn't understand how something could mean something. So you ask that, and someone tells you that curiosity that you're experiencing is actually the devil, right? Okay. Yeah. This is traumatizing. We shouldn't be doing this to people. But when superstitions govern understanding and expression of emotions, individuals may feel constrained in how they can experience and express their feelings, which many do, because then you can, you know, whether those feelings are sensual, sexual, whatever, any type of feelings you have, all of a sudden um, depending on what your superstitious climate is, you feel the need to either repress these emotions or you feel the need to exaggerate other emotions, ultimately not really finding a type of homeostasis or balance within your own life, a bench line for yourself that just says, no, this is who I am. I know who I am. I know why I feel the way that I feel. And I don't have to be led by my emotions, which is another thing that I find to be very common, where superstition is highly prevalent, that people tend to be led more by their emotions and their emotional understanding of the world. So if they're mad, they will fight. If someone breaks their heart, they feel that it is justifiable to kill that person. Someone broke their heart. They feel, oh, I can shoot you now because you broke my heart. These types of behaviors and ideologies are attached to our superstitions about ownership and control. These are things about taking away another person's autonomy. And this is also a sense of seeing yourself as fragile, that other people's behaviors can break you. And this was definitely common language growing up for me, is that especially growing up, without your parents the way you're supposed to, something is supposed to be missing in you. You're supposed to be missing something while biologically missing nothing. But because of our superstitious relationship with sociological constructs, we think that, oh, if a person doesn't have two parents, that person is missing something. That person is broken in some type of way. Or if something happens to that person as a child, that is unfortunate. That now this person is damaged for the rest of their lives. These ideals are superstitious, and these things can be dangerous for your emotional health, because in many cases they can become self-fulfilling prophecies that, oh, this happened to me, so this is why I have to behave this way every time. This is why I can't control the way this, because something happened to me, or because something didn't happen to me, because this person didn't love me right. And I've gone through all of that. I've lived through all of that. And I lived a great portion of my life actually believing that something was wrong with me because I didn't have what Bobby and Susie had down the road. And much of that was reinforced by my superstitions. Once I actually started getting a realistic understanding of the world, without any expectation of a superhero who's out there supposed to be looking out for me, a lot of the anxiety about dealing with life just went away, because I realized, holy crap, this is life and you have to deal with it. If you want a better life, you have to do things differently. And I don't know what those different things may be, but I do know that you're capable of figuring it out as long as you separate yourself from superstition and look at the world as it is, not necessarily as you want it to be, or not even as you were taught that it was. And ultimately, that's why I find it offensive when people are like, oh, so you got the science now, so I guess you know everything. That's not the claim. The claim is not that we know everything. As a matter of fact, that is uniquely a theistic claims. Theists claim to know everything. They claim to know They claim to know things that they could possibly know. Science just says, I only know what I know. And intelligence is truly knowing what you don't know. Oh, that's freedom, isn't it? Knowing what you don't know. So I don't have to pretend that I do know. Okay, so that's emotional health. We're going to keep going. But the big point is that this can lead to a disconnection from one's own emotions and or an overemphasis on certain feelings based on superstitious beliefs, and this disrupts emotional balance and well-being. And hey, if these type of superstitious things do not impact you, then hey, maybe you're safe. Um, but there's also the mental health. The effects of superstition on mental health are profound, particularly in how individuals respond to trauma, which is one that I, we talk about the trauma of religion, but we do not talk about how superstition oftentimes exasperates our response to the trauma. And so I find that a lot of things, and hear me carefully here, that a lot of things that are supposed to be designed to heal trauma don't actually heal trauma. They just address and acknowledge trauma. Because you kind of have to do the work to understand what healing is. And now, and again, that's some controversial territory, but I do plan on doing some work there. But unhealthy responses to trauma, triggers, and stress, superstition exasperates these things. Superstition beliefs can exasperate, yeah, I want to say a different word, um, can exasperate anxiety and depression by attributing these conditions to supernatural causes rather than recognizing them as mental health issues that require professional treatment. Some of you that have heard my deconstruction testimony, a part of my early days in ministry, I was what you would call a demon buster, which meant I went out and I cast demons out of people. I would go to their houses and cast the devil out. I stopped doing that fairly early on because I started to realize, even in my own superstition, that, hey, I don't think these are demons. And I think this might be a mental health issue. And I think me being here and participating in this may be making it worse. Right? Um, Furthermore, superstitions can create additional stressors as individuals struggle to navigate a world interpreted through the lens of irrational belief. You know, and then this last one that I want to hit. This one is probably going to be the most controversial for everybody, but that's okay. That's what I'm here for. And it's spiritual health, right? Now, if you really want to understand what I mean when I say spiritual health, I encourage you to go watch the spiritually speaking video. That's one of my videos on YouTube. Watch that, and you'll get a better understanding by what I mean by spiritual health. But I do not mean supernatural health by any means, necessary. But I do see spiritual as this thing that we've identified that kind of exists in the realms of emotional health and mental health as well. Because and I explained this in that video that I have found no spiritual experience or description of a spiritual experience that wasn't rooted in natural observation and natural phenomena. And to help you understand that better, if it wasn't rooted in natural observation or natural phenomenon, we wouldn't have the ability to discuss it because we wouldn't be aware of it. So even though we're using this word spiritual, we know that what we're talking about, at least when I'm talking about it, is something 100% natural, whether that natural experience was hysteria, whether it was a hallucination, or whether it was just the chemicals in your body responding to a good time. But either way, for whatever reason, we've designated those things as spiritual. So that's what I mean when I say spiritual health. Um, and spiritual health is highly influenced by superstitions. Number one, because it will have you conflating a very natural experience you're having with something, interdimensional, intergalactic, third heaveny, and literally your cortisol levels just rose, that and that is a beautiful thing. knowing that there are ways that we can hack that there are ways when we are sad and ways when we are sad or feeling down that we can um, spend time with other people singing or something and immediately feel better. There's that seems like justifiable instant gratification. I'm down for that kind of party. But if you're attaching interdimensional type of things to that, and heavenly, for lack of better words, or divine things, or you're attaching ghosts to that, whether it's one ghost, which it's typically how Christians are, it's the Holy Ghost, ghosts to it, or you're attaching spirits to it, or you're attaching vibrations to it, or you're like, my energy level is rising, any of that, then obviously you're talking about something beyond your ability to actually engage that discussion. And of course, that's not healthy, because at that moment you're pretending, and then pretending that you're not pretending. Like, yikes. We wonder why certain issues are on the rise, in certain communities. And it's like, no, you are literally pretending, and then pretending that you're not pretending. That is not a healthy mental practice. Those are not the type of reindeer games that you want to play. So yeah, while the idea of spirituality and spiritual community can offer a sense of belonging and understanding when it's intertwined with superstition, it does lead to practices and beliefs that are disconnected from reality. And just to kind of highlight that, I say that because we have people who are Wiccans and pagans, and well, we're all pagans at the end of the day, but Wiccans and you could easily conflate one Wiccan and another, but there are Wiccans who have no superstitious approach to the world whatsoever. And then there are Wiccans who do believe that by them touching this tree at this specific time, that power is happening. But the same way, your organized atheists typically do not have any, not atheists, sorry, your organized Satanists typically do not have any superstitious beliefs, but then there are other people who do call themselves Satanists that do have superstitious beliefs. And so, um, spiritual community, at least by my idea, and spirituality to me seems to be a social construct. Um, in the same way that most of everything else is. Um, but when spirituality seems to be plausible without superstition, in as much as it is those things of how we relate to each other, and how we define our interplay with the things around us and our impact on our environment, and things of that nature. Those things are all spiritual, in the sense that we have no biological reason to care about those things. No evolutionary, biological reason to care about those things. We care about those things as a product of our own socialization, as a product of our own evolution. I often like to compare it to the flight pattern of birds. It's an emergent property. It's not something that is actually grounded in our biology, but it is grounded in our sociology, and therefore our current reality. And that changes. But so you can have that. You can have those spiritual experiences. People do. You can have it with the mushrooms or without the mushrooms, whatever floats your boat. We can have these experiences that we may define as spiritual, but when we do define those as spiritual and attach those to superstitious beliefs, we do set ourselves up for very unhealthy paradigms. And I think we can all speak to the dangers of superstition being conflated with spirituality, because then it does allow for a lot of people who are otherwise con artists and scam artists and schemers and scammers to present information and just say, "Oh, I'm talking about the spiritual realm, so you can't measure this." If we're talking about something that can't be measured, then you're talking about something that can't be observed. And if you're talking about something that can't be observed, I'm not sure how you're even aware of it. So I don't typically engage those conversations. That would just be a quick, I understand your delusion. Um, so those are my areas. This I did not expect this one to be this long. I'll try to make the next one a little shorter, but those are my areas. I'd love to hear what you think about them. I'd love to hear if there are any other areas that you think should be included on this list. Um, My goal here is just to kind of shed light on the negative impacts of superstition, but also encourage, our members, our subscribers, our viewers, to reflect on how evidence-based thinking and rationality can lead to healthier, more fulfilling lives. The idea here is to encourage critical thinking and skepticism because it can empower individuals to make informed decisions that enhance their well-being and the health of their communities across these seven critical dimensions. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you all joining with me. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel, man. Hit that notification bell, so that way you're going to get all the alerts anytime new content is ready. Consider also, this is a good idea. Oh yeah, share this video. That always works too. And I think I've already said this, but let me know what you thought in the comments. I actually do love reading your feedback. I love going through the comments. I try to respond to most of them that I can, as long as this as long as this is sustainable to do. But we also do have a Patreon community, and we are also a part of the YouTube partner program now, which means we can offer memberships on our channel, and they are ready for you. And you can do super thanks and super chats and all of those type of things now. So we are adding more and more ways to engage as time goes by. Again, thank you all for hanging out with me today. And until next time, keep rising, keep progressing, and stay beautiful. I like that.